guys, Comic Boom here to review Wonder Woman issue 58. J. Willow Wilson's first issue. And a beautiful cover by Terry Dodson. Check that out, huh? Looks really good. How does this issue go? J. Willow Wilson, of course, is known for writing Miss Marvel. How is her Wonder Woman here in this first issue? Overall, not bad. First, I want to say what I like about it. I like the fact that she's sort of, she's focusing on Ares. I like the fact that Grail made an appearance here. And I like the fact that we're getting some idea in terms of what J. Willow Wilson, how she wants to challenge Wonder Woman. And she avoids some of the usual sort of trappings that some writers get into with Wonder Woman. And I hope she follows through with it. There's nothing more cliche than a preachy Wonder Woman than one that simply comes out and solves problems easily with her magic lasso, pretends to be this heroic person by spouting nonsense about peace and love and blah blah blah, and not getting their feet dirty. You know what I mean? Not like Steve Orlando's run where, you know, she wraps her magic lasso around the general and everybody starts getting along and forms a circle and sings Kumbaya, you know? I like a little bit of realism there. Now, early signs are maybe we're going to get that here. It's early to tell with J. Willow Wilson here, but so far so good. Now, how did this start off? Well, let me say this. Ares and Grail, they're imprisoned on Themyscira. Now, there's some hiccups there. There's some continuity problems that simply do not make sense given previous story arcs. But I'm going to get to that in a moment. I want to focus on what I like about this. And that is that Ares very clearly decides he's had enough of imprisonment, and now he gets tired of imprisonment, so he has basically Grail kill him with the God Killer sword. And I don't really know why, but he's got some master plan so that presumably he's going to come back and he's going to fight for justice. Because Ares used to always be sort of like, he was the god of war and about evil with men and war amongst mankind and humanity. And apparently now he came to the realization somehow, inexplicably after his conversations with Grail, that justice should be something he should be fighting for. How that plays out and how Ares feels, how Ares believes he can best achieve justice, and justice for what, justice to whom, justice for what, I don't know. Justice, I don't know. But clearly Wonder Woman is going to have a role to play in Ares' new sort of path toward justice, however he defines that to be. Now, in the meantime, Wonder Woman has a dream that something bad happens to Steve Trevor. She wakes up out of the dream and she gets a call from Ada Candy, who's in the military, telling her that Steve Trevor's lost, and he went into this Middle Eastern country, and was Middle Eastern country that has been sort of democratically ruled, but it's ruled by sort of a cruel majority rule, so to speak. And Steve Rogers has been taken captive, and she, of course, Wonder Woman takes it upon herself to go into the country, and she's going to find Steve Trevor. And it's interesting. There's some Wonder Woman confronts the soldiers. There's some interesting philosophical differences between Ada Candy, military mindset, working for the U.S. military, versus Wonder Woman, who generally works for herself and has her own set of values in terms of how to achieve peace and how to achieve one's goals. Whereas Ada Candy is a good representation of the U.S. military insofar as they're very powerful, but they're bound by a certain set of rules. And of course, Wonder Woman's not bound by those same set of rules. So there's sort of a nice little offset and tension between Wonder Woman's approach and, of course, the U.S. military. I like that potential. There's a potential there for conflict, maybe building up some personal drama between Ada Candy, Steve Trevor, Wonder Woman. I think that's really good. And then, of course, ending the issue out with Wonder Woman coming face to face with Ares, who looks an awful lot like Steve Trevor. And I say that because we know Ares has darker hair. He's a darker-haired person from in Grey Rucka's one, he had darker hair, and he also had darker hair at the end of James Robinson's run when Grail ended up being incarcerated alongside Ares at the end of James Robinson's run, which ultimately resulted in Darkseid being defeated and made young again and being essentially reborn and eventually showing up in the pages of Justice League Odyssey. But so there you have it. So an opening issue that is pretty good. I don't mind it. Now I'm gonna get into some criticisms here. And these are all constructive criticisms. None of these are deal deal killers here by any stretch. Overall, I think J. Willow Wilson, she's whetted my appetite. I'm willing to give this a chance. And again, it's all good. But having said that, though, I am going to have some nitpicks here. And this is from a continuity point of view. Ares and Grail, for whatever reason, they seem to be incarcerated in a cave under Themyscira. That doesn't make any sense. Ares was actually incarcerated in a tree, and he's not in a cave, so that doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't make any sense that Grail was imprisoned in the same room as Ares. That's also ridiculous. But even if I grant you that, and granted it was foolish that at the end of James Robinson run, when Grail got trapped in Themyscira, at the end of James Robinson run, Grail basically infiltrated through a portal to come into Themyscira to basically convert and to transform all of the Amazons into parademons to be part of her father Darkseid's army. Well, make a long story short here, she ended up getting trapped on Themyscira. The only person who managed to escape was Jason, Wonder Woman's brother, but Grail got trapped in Themyscira and then incarcerated alongside Ares, who was a voluntary captor, and it was suggested that Ares could maybe help convert Grail to see past her bad ways, because Ares himself was somewhat converted and moving toward the light as opposed to the darkness of war and being the war god. Now, as it turns out now, of course, Ares now seems to be inclined to fight for justice, and for some reason they're imprisoned in a cave, which is different. That's not explained why they're in a cave, and for some odd reason they're surrounded by weapons. I mean, so if you're the Amazons, why would you incarcerate Ares and Grail in a cave that is literally littered with swords and weapons? In particular, the God Killer sword. Now, the God Killer sword, for those of you who may not know, I mean, the last person I know in a comic book story, at least that I read, that utilized the God Killer sword was Deathstroke in a crossover event with him and Wonder Woman and Superman, and he used the God Killer sword to, surprise, surprise, kill a god. Well, it's the God Killer sword here that Grail uses, that Ares taunts Grail, where to the point where she actually uses the God Killer sword on him and essentially kills Ares. And this causes all sorts of chaos, and then all of a sudden the scene goes to another scene, and then we ultimately end up seeing Ares at the end of the comic looking an awful lot like Steve Trevor. Why? We don't know. That's going to be in subsequent issues, I'm sure. So there's a lot to whet the appetite here, but I got the question, why on earth were weapons? I mean, you don't keep prisoners in a room filled with weapons. I mean, why didn't Ares and why didn't Grail escape with the weapons to begin with? Or why don't they cut their chains with the swords that they're surrounded? All these questions that I don't really have an answer to. I hope that they're answered in future issues, but maybe I don't know, maybe J. Willow Wilson. I'm a little unclear as to what continuity she thought she was working with, because it's not really adding up to me. But again, maybe that's just a nitpick, and maybe you guys can correct me on that, and I missed something in past issues. Grail herself is not aggressive enough here. She's drawn too much like a depressed, depressed, sort of dopey teenage girl. She's not the aggressive. She doesn't look particularly aggressive. She's not artistically rendered very well either. I think Kerry Nord, I think his art here is serviceable. It's not, I wouldn't call it to be, this is a significant step down. And I hate to say that, but when you have artists like I think it's Sergo Segovia, it was, Dark Knight Nation and I were talking about it in a live stream last night, but Segovia was a great artist, and throughout James Robinson run, the art's been fantastic in it. Throughout James Robinson's run and Steve Orlando's run, again, great artist. Kerry Nord here, the art's just not up to task. This is such. I personally find this to be very unfortunate and tragic, because to have J. Willow Wilson on this run, and there are so many scenes in here where the backgrounds are awful, non-existent. I mean, the coloring is great. I mean, Forgiato Jr. on the colors, he's a fantastic colorist, and he saves this very mediocre art. I mean, look at the coloring on that, because, I mean, artistically, the detail is awful. And very little, awful detail, not particularly good, but the coloring saves it in the transition. But the art's particularly, it's extremely disappointing. Even Grail, I mean, Grail's face, I mean, she looks different from panel to panel. There's not a lot of consistency in the faces. There's page sequences like this that seem extremely rushed, and it's definitely a little bit off. There's even a scene here where after Ares taunts Grail to kill him, and she kills him with the God Sword, and this is Grail. This is the daughter of Darkseid, and she's going like this. Oh my God! What did I do? Did I kill Ares? Of course you killed Ares. You knew what you were doing. You had the God Sword. You had the God Killer sword in your hand, and I mean this is Grail. She would have wiped out, and she was willing to kill the entire Justice League. She would have no reservations against taking Ares' life. So it seemed a little bit off to me in that regard. Grail seemed very much not Grail. She didn't seem nearly aggressive enough. Overall, I think the story has potential. I'm looking forward to it. The art, I really hope Cary Nord improves on his art. I don't know if he didn't have enough time to finish this or what's going on. I know I followed him when he was drawing Conan the Barbarian. It's much better. He's much better when his art's almost like painted, or it's whatever the combination they're using here for the art. It's a fail for me. It's serviceable at best. Wonder Woman deserves better. This is not an A-game artist, and I hate to focus on that and harp on that. And I know art's subjective, and you think, well, why am I focusing on that? If it's subjective, well, because it's my review and I can say what I want. That's why. And I don't like the art. I hope they get a different artist. It does take away from the quality of the story. It really, truly does, in my view. I can't get into this story as much as I could because the art is a little off. And Grail is also drawn wrong. She's inconsistent. Once again, another artist that gets the eyes of Grail wrong. She doesn't have eyeballs. Okay? It's all red. It's solid red eyes and solid red pupils, okay? Don't give her eyeballs. Don't give her the hint of eyeballs. It's solid red eyes, okay? Look at Darkseid War. That's her eyes, okay? Get the eyes right. I don't know what it is. I mean, take the time to Google it, for God's sakes. Anyways, for God Killer's sake. But anyways, guys, my rant is over. That was more of a rant than a review, but so be it. Is it worth checking out? Yeah, it's worth checking out. And maybe you'll disagree about the art. I hope you do. You'll enjoy the story more. In any event, guys, follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. Hit the subscribe button. And until next time, Comic Boom, out.